Hi, my name's Leanne and I'm a trance channel and soul abundance activator. I'm so excited to share with Pearl today.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under 80. Funny how there ain't no rain or clean. Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl and welcome to another Conversations with Pearl episode. And I'm so excited to have our special guest on today. And she's actually coming way from another country. So we love having our special guest that come across the world to us today. And again, I'm with Women's Successful Living, where I empower you to show up first in your life so that you don't feel like you're lost and doing for everybody else. So let's overcome people pleasing together. And we're going to talk about some of that today with our special guest, Leanne Rose. She's a trance channel for an interdimensional collective consciousness called the Galayla Collective. And together they are assisting humanity with stepping into the new paradigm of manifestation. You guys know I love manifestation and the adult phase of manifestation, also called the 6D manifestation. There is a collective shift happening on the planet right now from 5D to 6D consciousness, which means we as a collective have access to much more of our creative power as source energy. And Leanne and the GC help souls step into their true power as source energy in human form so that they can unleash their full potential in this lifetime and serve the humanity at the highest level while creating a life of abundance, joy, love, and freedom. Welcome to the show today, Leanne.
Thanks for having me, love. It's great to be here.
Yay, so excited. So tell everybody where you're coming in from.
I'm from Liverpool in England, UK.
Yay, well, welcome all the way here. And what time is it there? Let's see, it's 10:30 in the morning here, our time. What time is it there?
It is 3:30 in the afternoon.
3:30. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you're with us today and so excited to be able to have this conversation with you today. And so I would love for you to share with the audience just a little bit about yourself. Where, of course, we know you're from the UK, but what brought you on this journey to all about manifestation? And listen, I am all about manifestation, everything in my life. Like I'm already earning X, whatever my money is I want. I'm already doing X, Y, Z, whatever those things are that I want to do in my life. Like they're already coming to me, right? And so, for instance, last year we do a retreat every year. It's our pajama retreat. You guys, if you're new to the show, it's so much fun. We show up in our everyday clothes. We do a makeup removal party that day that you arrive. There's no makeup. You're in your PJs the entire weekend and you work on yourself. It's so heavenly, and you're right. We work on our self-care, but it's just so much fun. And last year we had 13 in attendance, all women. We stay at this beautiful house at the beach. And my goal was, I told the ladies last year, we will have 25 at the retreat this year. And here we are, the middle of April, and we are sold out. 25 the retreat. So talk about manifestation. I said it last September, and I think we actually achieved it by the end of March. So Leanne, tell us what brought you on this journey to learning and sharing all about this subject.
Yeah, I mean, so like many others, it started with a healing journey for me. I had quite a rough childhood, grew up in foster care, had not great things happen when I was younger. So I kind of entered into the world of healing first, and really wanting to step into just feeling better, a lot of that inner child healing, all of that kinds of stuff. Actually trained in a lot of those modalities. I'm actually a trained mental health nurse and interpersonal therapist. But I gradually found my way into yoga and meditation, just to help with some of that nervous system regulation stuff. And that inevitably started to open up my ability to channel, which then led me down the path of law of attraction, manifestation. And that is how I am here today, because I went down a rabbit hole and I've not looked back.
And, I think it's important to talk about, my oldest son was adopted. We got him 2 weeks before he went to he would have gone into the foster care system. And I worked with many nonprofits to help with children that, are being adopted and or have been adopted through the system. And, I don't know what it's like in UK, but over here it's, any child being in a foster system is not, it's not a great experience for a young child because, you're lost. What's happened to me? Why me? You and those children like yourself didn't ask for this to happen. Right. And so there's all these emotions that come with it. And I think too, like probably at a young age, and with some of the my friends and working in a nonprofit, that children, they do create that this is what I'm hoping for my family to look like. So at a young age, even they're manifesting that family. Right. And so here you are. And, I'm sure as a young child, you were manifesting what you hoped your family would be like and what would look like. And so you've taken that now and created, you said you went down a rabbit hole, but really, I think you've climbed out of the rabbit hole. And, this worked for me as a child and I want to carry it forward. I don't know if you're adopted or not out of the, from the system or not, but, you've taken that and found a way to create that in your life to be a positive thing. And so,
absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, like, and were you adopted or did you grow out of
No,
system?
so I actually went through the foster care system, went through a number of different foster parents. I wouldn't change anything that I experienced. It completely, created the person I am today. And I'm really proud of the woman I am today. And it's because of my, upbringing in the way that it was. And it taught me a lot. So, I didn't get put with just one family. I experienced lots of different families, which taught me a lot about humanity, which has been really integral to the work that I do today. So all worked out for the highest good.
So I'm glad you shared that part of your journey because I think too, like we were saying, you have this, the young children, even children that are not adopted, we have this creative mind about, we create these visions, right? And we don't realize that little child that's really manifesting. You're manifesting what you want to be when you grow up. People, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, you kind of had that dream and you manifested at a young child. We just don't know that energy. We don't understand that energy. We don't understand how that energy can change our lives, right?
Yeah.
And so that's so important. And so tell us, Leanne, like as you came through your childhood and then into your adulthood, how and what led you to become deeper involved in manifestation?
So I lost my mum when I was around 19. I was actually 20 by the time she passed. But it was really sudden. She was diagnosed and then 2 months later she'd passed away. And my mum was kind of like my anchor point for everything. So I still had contact with my mum. I still really, even though, she wasn't able to look after me because she had a diagnosis of schizophrenia and depression. There was still lots and lots of love between us. I still felt very, very connected to her. And so when she passed, it really it floored me, as it would with anybody. But actually it then invited me to, I talk about this a lot in some of my other content, is that it actually became the catalyst for me to really begin to explore the other side, because I then felt, I had a reason to, because my mama was over there. But I also felt like there was this safety blanket, because I knew that my mum would protect me from the other side. And so before my mum passed away, I'd always had a fascination with spirituality, with all things magical, everything, to do with the other side, all of that stuff, opening up psychic abilities. But I was always really fearful of it. I was really scared of it. And so when my mum passed away and it became inevitable that I would want to communicate with her and connect with her, and I would open my heart and I could feel her, I could literally feel her in the room with me. I could feel her cuddling me. I could hear her speaking to me. And it really comforted me. And after I'd kind of gotten over the initial elements of the grief bits, and I'd kind of been reassured that she is still here, it was suddenly now this new opportunity to explore the other side. And my mum kind of became an ally. It was like this safety net on the other side. So I no longer had the fear that I had before my mum passed. And that's when things really began to massively open up and my channeling ability actually came online.
I'm so sorry to hear about you lost your mom, and I lost my son last July at 25 years old.
Oh,
And one of the things too is, I've had, I've had other loss. It's different. I lost my mother-in-law who was like a mom to me, and my father-in-law in the same regards. But, I always felt like these connections, like you said, you have these
yeah.
connections, you feel them around you. But I love that you share that, your mom become your ally from the other side too. And I kind of feel like that. I was just talking about that in a network meeting this morning where, when Matt passed, I felt him pass. Like my husband,
Yeah.
like, he's like, I wouldn't believe some of these things. Like when I talk about manifestation and things like that, I'm not as connected as like what you are, but, and that's just because that's where I am. But he said, if I hadn't seen, we talked to my son 20 minutes before he passed, said we loved each other. Then he was in a tragic car accident. And literally, like, I normally always sit, my husband has a recliner, and then we have a sectional. And I always sit the last seat in the sectional closest to the recliner, right? And so for whatever reason, shortly after we talked to our son, I got up and I moved to the other seat. I never sit at that other seat, ever. I mean,
Wow.
and so when I was sitting there, I started shaking uncontrollably. And this was about probably 10 minutes after we talked to our son. And
Wow.
and we were having a conversation, like, we were kind of worried about him, how he sounded on the phone and things like that. I'm like, we need to try to go find him. He's like, we can't. We don't know where he's at because he was going to his girlfriend's house. We don't know where she lives. And so I started shaking uncontrollably. And my husband's response was, you're going to have a heart attack. You have to stop. And I literally remember saying to him, this is not health. I don't know why I'm shaking other than to tell you
Mm.
something's wrong. Right. And then
Yeah.
the next day we found out our son had passed. But so like you said, like those connections, right? Those connections, like I feel him. I'll tell my husband, well, don't you talk to him? He's like, how can you talk to him? And I talk to him. I'm like, well, it's just like God's everywhere for us. He hears
Yeah.
all of us. It's not like he goes, I'm talking to Leanne right now. And then I'm going I'm like, he would never get any rest. So,
Yeah.
so the thought, some people and some of our listeners listening are probably going, oh, those guys, they
Yeah.
don't, and, and if you don't understand it, it's okay because it's something that may be new to you. And if you
Yeah.
can be open to the fact that manifesting is something that is really, it's kind of like when I coach, I tell and I coach on whatever you want is already there. When you come into
Yeah.
this world, no matter what you believe in, whether it's God, Buddha, whatever it is you believe in, it's there. It's already in your DNA. It's part of our Shiro, what we call Shiro. The O is for original. You're the original self of who you were brought into this world. It's just that sometimes in life, things get in our way, or
Yeah.
people tell us things that, we want to believe that aren't truth, right? And so I love how you shared on that connection, and then having your mom as an ally, because I feel like that's my son. Like I feel like I said this morning, we were just talking, I feel like when he passed, I feel like he went and had a conversation with God and said, I put my parents through so much stuff. Can we just bless my mom with things? Because like blessings have been there, but really, I know the blessings have always been there. I just
Yeah.
didn't see them, right? I just didn't see them and reach for them, right? So
Yeah.
tell us, Leanne, a little bit about the Galayla Collective.
Amazing. So, and firstly, I'm so sorry to hear about your son, but lovely
Thank
that
you.
you feel that connection with
Thank
him.
you.
Um, so the Galayla Collective, my ability to trance channel came online around 18 months ago, just over. And what that really is kind of really opening up my channel and so this is very, very woo. So for people that aren't into spiritual stuff, you're probably going to think I'm a bit of a whack job. That's why I'm a trained mental health nurse. I think I set this up for myself deliberately so that when I got full woo, I can say to people, well, I'm a trained registered mental health nurse, so I know I'm not crazy. But basically what I do is open up my energy to higher vibrational beings to step in and to offer their wisdom. So they call themselves the Galayla Collective. They're an interdimensional collective consciousness. And what they basically represent is the element of us that recognizes that all is one. And they preach from that standpoint, and they help us to anchor in to our true power as human beings. A lot of people that are on the spiritual journey are trying to avoid being human. They're trying to get rid of being human. And so what the Galayla Collective actually teach about is that your power is in being human, and that the joy for you as, source, as creator, whatever you want to call it, is in experiencing a human form and experiencing your power through a human form. So the principle of what we teach is that you are all things, and you come into this very concentrated individual perspective to forget that you are all things, so that you can journey back to the remembrance that you are all things for the joy of that journey, basically.
Yeah, I think there's so, there's so much happening in the world, especially since COVID. And, you're talking about mental fitness, and, I'm a mental fitness PQ coach. And you're right. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in everything that, we don't want to recognize that we are this being that we are. And like I try to attribute to, like, you have this file cabinet in front of your head, right? And all those things we say, like, we're not worthy, I don't deserve it, all bad things happen to me. All those things that we want to believe are in that front part of your brain. But as you start to release it and shred those thoughts, then you can feel the energy of who you originally were back here, of you're beautiful, you're wonderfully made, you deserve everything. It's like, it's all there. And it's interesting too, because, like, as you start setting a goal, right, and you start feeling the energy of that goal, the energy of, like you said, coming back to who you are and the being that you are, things are going to come up to try to stop you from feeling that energy, right, Leanne? Like, you're going to, like, I remember we had a whole, every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time, we have a group of women that I coach in what we call the Shiro League. And in that weekly meeting, we're doing this thing about setting goals right now. And one of the things I told them, I said, listen, you're going to manifest on this. You're going to do your own manifestation. You're going to say your own manifestation. And what's going to happen is things are going to try to come in, because you're going to start achieving these things, and things are going to happen, right? And literally, bam, like the next week, here I was, like, I think it was like 3 weeks later, like I said, the last person bought my retreat. We sold out. And then all of a sudden, something in life just, like, try to be like, nope, I'm going to stop you, and, recognizing that, that's the thing that I love to coach on with women, is to recognize when those things come up, those saboteurs, as we like to call them, and how we judge ourselves, right? So as they show up, like, what do you do with it, right? Yeah. So in the process, we name the saboteur. Like, my saboteur, her name is Betsy. When Betsy shows up, and I tell everybody, name her whatever you want to name it. One of my clients has the see you next Tuesday word. So she goes, can I call her that? I go, call her whatever you want to call her. I don't care. It's your word. If it resonates with you, it resonates. I don't care what you call her, So I just, it's so powerful that when we do get back in tune with who we are and get back in tune with that energy, and we can stop those outside things and people from trying to sabotage us, and then our own inside thoughts of saboteurs. And then you start going, wow, I didn't realize all this stuff was there for me, right? And all this energy. I just love how you remind us of that we can, reconnect and do that manifestation. So tell us about the shifting, I agree with you when I was reading your bio about how I feel like we are doing the shift, like you said, collectively. Like, I think there's all kinds of shifts happening in our world right now. Some are good, some are bad. But I feel like as humans, we know, and I feel like we're kind of in this world right now where, we want to stay with what our beliefs are. We want to stay in that shift that we know is a positive thing, but we get pulled for, this person's side. Like, okay, let's just talk politics. We have Republicans and Democrats here, right? But you get pulled into, kind of like that. Like, oh, there's these, negative people over here, these positive, come follow me. Like, so when you're working with clients, how do you help them sort of stay, Leanne, like, stay focused in that, their energy, like the power of their energy? And how do you help them block out the power of others' energy? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yes, that's a gorgeous question. So we teach about the 4 dominant energies of the universe, and one of which is your sovereignty. It's that piece of you that, you are the individual piece to your energy, individual piece of source, we would call it. But this is you. This is your uniqueness. And we help people to recognize how that fits into the whole. So the key foundations of what we teach is that all is one, that oneness is, everything is part of one. And so everything is actually serving everything else because it's all one big, wonderful, juicy, intricate, very beautifully designed system that is all about experiencing different perspectives of love frequency. It looks very messy to us as humans because we don't have the full picture. So what we actually help people to recognize is what is their individual piece and what is the collective piece, and how do those two perspectives fit together? Because ultimately, they are all one. And so what we help people to recognize is where they've been giving their power away to the collective and where that doesn't serve. So, i.e., the people-pleasing elements, when we struggle to put in boundaries, a lot of people have been taught to put themselves last. And so we help people recognize how it's actually very empowering to the entire system when you put yourself first. And that's a key thing that we help people to recognize and remember. But we also help people to recognize why that saboteur piece comes in. That's the piece that helps us to recognize that we are the creators of our own reality. And so everything that we are experiencing has a part to play. There is a piece of information that is trying to get into us. And so we teach people how to interpret that information and to utilize it. We teach them alchemical and energetic frameworks and tools that they can begin to really, really see what's happening for themselves, both in the outside world and in the inner world, and learn to recognize what shifts they need to take to begin to then really focus and harness their own sovereignty and make sure that they are the ones influencing the outside world rather than the outside world completely shaping and influencing them.
Yeah, and it's so important too. I love that you're coaching on that, because it's so important to know those energies that don't serve you or people that don't serve you, that you have to, set those boundaries over. I have a friend that, well, she's not really a friend anymore, but somebody who was in my life that everywhere we went, like people they saw us, we were like this, and I have my fingers crossed, I can't see, but we were so tight. And, something happened, and it wasn't, her response wasn't an ethical acceptance that I was going to allow in my energy, in my world. And so I basically said, that's not acceptable. And so, you're going to have to leave. Like, she was living with us. I was like, you're just going to have to leave, because I can't accept that thought. That's, life is very valuable. And so, many people were like, because they saw us together, everywhere together, what happened to so-and-so? I'm like, and for a while there, I was like, well, she's, we're just not here together. And so finally I was like, you know what? I'm by my response, I'm taking responsibility for what she said. Right.
Yeah.
And so finally I just was like, this isn't, I need to be honest with myself. No, we're not together here because her ethics no longer align with my ethics. So that's why. And I just started saying that, because that's the truth. There's nothing deny that. And it was such a release by doing that I found myself going, okay, I'm no longer like that people pleaser in me wanted to be like, how can we make this relationship work? But I realized it's not where I want to be lined up and who I want to be lined up and how I want to look. It's funny. I was at this network meeting I was just mentioning a few minutes ago this morning, and they were talking about how you look out in public, right? And the more I sat back as this relationship went its way, I realized people thought I was a lot like her in my thought process. And I'm like, no, that is not the energy I wanted out in the world, right? So I love that that, like you said, the you versus the collective, right? That you versus the collective. And it's important. So for the listeners to know that, it's okay to have boundaries around friends, around family, around things that you do and you don't want to do. It's really important that you have that understanding that those boundaries need to be there. I mean, I have a boundary. I was a daddy's girl. My oldest was adopted. He was mixed race. And my father, as my son became older, he became racist. And so I had to set a boundary. I sat and prayed with God, and I said, what do I do? And what he showed me was, and it went back to something my priest had said one time, that, we pick our parents And when we don't pick our parents, God picks our parents. However, this game of life is our ball game. So there are rules of playing your ball game. And if they can't play by those rules, you can sit them on the bench. And I just, it's like, you know what? He's sitting on the bench permanently. And I literally released him as my dad. And, you know, he's still alive. But to my brothers and my sisters, I said, have your relationship you want with him. I'm no longer having a relationship with him. And here's why. And then, you know, I released it. And it's so important for listeners to understand that it can be something like a family member that you have to say strong boundaries over and make sure that you do that. And then also friends, careers. Sometimes for those that are listening that maybe in a career, you're like, you know what? The way this company's going is not aligning with what I want. Yeah. Then it's okay to either A, start looking for something else, or B, get out of Dodge, you know, and find something else. That's part of lining up of what your boundaries are and your beliefs are and your energy and how you want that energy to work for you, you know, and I think it's so important to understand, like you said, the you versus the collective, Leanne.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key things that we're taught from, you know, from the get-go, and particularly women. As women, we're kind of trained that, oh, you know, we have to be polite, we have to be people pleasers, we have to smile and, you know, and take everything as it is. But actually, if we want to be powerful creators of our own reality, then we have to be comfortable with saying, that's not how I want to be loved, or that's not how I want to be treated. And actually, boundaries are actually a form of love, and they actually show people this is how you can this is how you can bring out the best of me. This is how you get the best of me. And so that's how I like to think of boundaries now. I like to think of it where it's not so black and white, you know, where sometimes there's times when we have to cut people out, and that was just the most beneficial thing for all involved. And sometimes it helps them come to their senses, sometimes it doesn't. But what matters is that your energy is protected and that you are, you know, thriving because you have that space and you no longer have that negativity bringing you down. But sometimes it's not that black and white. Sometimes people are doing things unconsciously that hurt us. And it might be really hard for us to say, actually, do you know, when you do that thing, it makes me feel this way. And those conversations can be sometimes even harder because it's not black and white. And so what I like to think of these as is a loving boundary. This is how to love me better. And when we think of it from this avenue, and we can think of it as, when you do this for me, it brings out the best in me, and therefore our relationship can really thrive. And in me asking you to love me in this way, I'm also inviting you to ask me to love you in the best way possible as well. And this is how we make the most of our relationships. Boundaries are actually a really loving thing to implement.
I love that you said that too, because I totally agree with you. It's like the boundaries are a way to love me better. And, you know, and I remember when I started really realizing that I need to do something to put myself first, because I was you know, like you said, as women, we think we have to fix everything, do everything, be everything for everybody, right? And we forget that we have to be for ourselves first, because, you know, my mom's mother, that's what they did, that generation. And then my mom's generation was the first one that worked at home and did everything at the home. And so when I came into my world and having a family, I have 2 boys. They know Wednesday and the weekends, these are the chores you need to get done. If they're not done, you don't get to go do the fun things you want to do. Right. And I was teaching them responsibility. And then I met my sister-in-law and my brother. They had my little nephew, Sean. I was visiting her and she's like, hey, come upstairs. Sean's going to put his clothes away. He was like 3 or 4 years old. I'm like, going, put his clothes away at 3 or 4? And she's like, yeah, he needs to learn this is a team effort. You know, this is a business that we're running here at the house. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so true. It truly is a business. And that, you know, boundaries are a way that we love ourselves, because if you can put boundaries up and you communicate, that's the one thing I love to communicate, to coach on, is communicating our realistic expectations with our loved one, with our jobs, even with our own business. If you're an entrepreneur, like, what are my expectations I want from myself or my business? And make sure that things you're doing are is representing that communication back to yourself. Right. And so I love that you remind us of that. So somebody comes in to work with you, Leanne, what can they expect when they first sit down with you? Like, how do you help them to start seeing this journey of manifestation, to go from woo woo to I get you? And how do you help them walk through that process?
So we teach them the alchemical frameworks that we are constantly putting into practice. What that essentially helps people to step into is learning to trust themselves at a whole new level, really learning to see all of the ways that they haven't been trusting themselves and the impact that that's had on their life. And then getting them to reframe that, to recode it, to choose different thoughts, to look at the parts of themselves that need lots of love, lots of attention, lots of juicy goodness, basically filling them back up to the top with love, with trust, with taking the actions that they've been procrastinating on for a long time because they haven't trusted themselves to take them. And then we set them loose in the world, let them put it into practice, and then bring them back in to ask questions about how they've been putting that into practice. Everything that I teach is all experiential. And we do a lot of energetic frequency stuff as well that helps people to really get into the woo side of things. And you get to ask lots of cosmic questions, which is always good fun. And then we really help you to put it in. So a lot of the stuff that we do is very, very woo, but it really is incredibly practical. We help you to go out into the world and to be a new version of yourself. But although it's not the new version, it's the original version. I love that that's what you call it, that bit in the back, that we're calling you home to that in every given minute for you to recognize that the life that you've always wanted can exist for you right now. And it really is a perception shift. It's about seeing yourself differently. It's about seeing yourself as the divine being that you actually are, that you are pure magic. You're literally pure magic. And the one thing that makes us miserable in life is trying to fight ourselves. And so we teach you how to fall in love with yourself all over again, not from a narcissistic point of view, but from that real divine element of we are all God's creatures, and it's learning to see ourselves through that lens and learning to see the world through that lens so that you can actually experience that magic on a day-to-day basis.
I love that you said fill your cup back up. I call it putting your cape on and wrapping it so tight that you still have room to pull somebody else in with you.
Oh,
I love that you said, because we have to remember that we do have to do the things that take care of us and we have to overflow with it. We have to overlove ourselves. And the thing is like, for those that are listening to go, yeah, but how do I communicate that to my family or my friends or my job? It's hard, but it's also by being the example, by saying, to your children. I remember when I first started doing this whole process, I remember saying to my kids, like at 8:00 at night, I'm going to go in my room. I'm going to be there for like an hour. And unless somebody is dying and has to go to the emergency room, don't bother me. Your dad's here in the house. You're good. Right. Yeah. And so it's that kind of expectations, but it's first communicating with your partner to be like, listen, we both, and here's the thing. This isn't just for women. Like men need this too, because men think they have to be the patriarch of the family. They have to do everything. And they put a lot on their shoulders as well. And so it's important to have that open conversation with each other of how can I support you in doing something for yourself? And this is how you can support me in doing something for myself. And and the conversation also should wrap around that. It's not that I don't love you. It's because I love you that I need to do this for me. I saw a clip. I think it might've been on TikTok. I don't remember where it was at, but somebody they'd gone through a therapist. It was a couple, and the therapist called them each out and said, you each have your things you have to work on. So you can decide you don't want to do this together with each other, but these things will never go away. Yeah. So you can either decide to work on it together because you're saying you really love each other. So you can either decide to work on these things together in this relationship, or are you going to wait to the next relationship to work on it? And I thought that was so powerful when I was reading that. And I like listened to it a couple of times. I was like, that's so true, because you can choose to work on yourself now in this world or not, because you and I both said here, you lost your mom suddenly. I lost my son suddenly. You're not promised the next 10, 30 seconds, the next day, year, whatever. So you can choose to say, I'm going to work on me now, or I'm never going to work on me. Right. And it's never too late. Even if it's a week from today and you're listening to this, it's never ever too late. But then again, if you're in a relationship, at a job, or a relationship with your children, you can choose to say, I'm going to work on this now because it's important, or I'm going to have to wait to the next relationship. And really, if you think about it, in some cases, and if you're listening to us, I would love for you to reach out to me and tell me if this resonates with you. But in some cases, look back, if you've been married more than once or twice, are you seeing some of the same patterns when your new mate that you saw in your old mate, that maybe if you look back and reflect and journal about it, it might have been patterns in yourself as well?
Absolutely. This is one of the key things that we teach on is I'm huge on sacred monogamy being a spiritual practice. You know, our partners become wonderful mirrors for all of what we call your fear frequency. You know, the parts of you that believe that you're not good enough, that believe that you're not worthy. Your partner becomes a mirror for all of that. And when we run from relationships, usually what we are running from is ourselves. And I love how you so beautifully put that you will run into the same things in the different relationships, because realistically, most of the time we are just running from a deeper level of intimacy with ourselves. And when you dive into sacred partnership with each other, and you learn to become a team, and you learn to recognize, do you know what? We're never going to be perfect, but we can figure out how to love each other in the best way possible. And we can make that a daily commitment to each other to keep trying to be a better partner and keep trying to be a better individual. Then life becomes really fun. And we recognize that, oh, do you know what? Maybe it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Maybe the healing journey doesn't have to be complete in order for me to be happy. I can just choose in this moment to shift into a different perspective, to see my partner as a teammate, and to come at this from the angle of, let's do something with this now. Let's feel better about this now. Let's deal with this stuff now. Because in reality, now is all we've ever really got, isn't it?
Yeah, so true. All we have is right now. That's so very, very true. And the other thing too is, like, with my husband and I, we've been together almost 40 years. Next year we've been together, which is, thank you. I'm very, very blessed. And one of the things that I learned early on with my husband, because I didn't have this with my family. Unfortunately, I didn't have a great example of how to raise children, how to communicate, all those things. And so one of the things that the only way I knew communication was if you got mad, you just didn't talk to each other. And so that's what I knew. And even as recently as 2 weeks ago, my mother is doing that with me today. And so I learned from my husband, like, when we first met, I was 19 years old. I was very young. So, and I remember we were having a disagreement. And all I knew was just ignore, because growing up, my parents argued, they'd have a disagreement. They wouldn't talk for 2 weeks, and everything was fine. And you're like going, how'd that happen? Right. And so that's all I knew. So, you know, and Chuck and I, it was early on, if we had disagreement, I would just sort of like just shut down, because that's all I knew to do. And so I remember one time he started like having the conversation for me. Like, he was like, so this is how I feel about such and such. And then he started talking for me, and I'm like, I would not have said that to you. And he goes, well, I don't know what you would say, because you're not talking to me. And so now he'll tell you, I just don't be quiet about what bothers me with him. But yeah, so it's really, really important to that communication, and to recognize, like you said, I could have run from him because that's what I need to do, but I was always going to not communicate if I didn't learn to communicate with him. Right. And I knew I wanted him in my life. So yeah, it's so important. This is such fun conversation. I'm really enjoying this. So Leanne, I want to shift us a little bit. So we talk about everything you and I have been talking about is stuff that I love coaching on. We have what's called our Shiro League, and then we have our Shiro Method, which is a process. I like to call it the GPS roadmap to all the things we're talking about, to communication, your realistic expectations, to finding out what it is you truly want. You know, what are your goals? To learn to put yourself first on that roadmap of life. So what I would love to know is, one of the things that when we start through the process, you know, I want to know about them. I want to know about, you know, what makes you feel good inside, right? Like, what really truly brings you joy. So the Shiro League, the S stands for strong. I believe that as we start this roadmap, you know, we're not sure where to go. We're kind of scared. You know, there's things happening in the world. What are people going to think when I start saying no to them and yes to me? You know, all those fears are there, right? So as you push through the fear, you become stronger. And then as you become stronger, you then become happier, or you feel this like new joy inside, because it's like, oh, those feelings are coming up when I was a little girl, that when I'd go out on the swing and I could swing in the swing, I was so happy, right? So then you become happier. And then as you are stronger and happier, you start becoming empowered, going, I can say no with no problems. I can do stuff for myself first. And so you become empowered to maybe quit your job and start a business, or tell your
Yeah.
boss you're not working these extended hours, or tell your family, listen, this is a business at home. I'm not doing everything for you. Whatever that is that you need to walk into that empowerment with is something that I love to help women do. And then we get to the R. I feel like as we work through the first three, you become like this radiance about yourself. Like you have this glow, right? You're like glowing up, right? And people are going, "Oh, Leanne, did you cut your hair? Did you lose some weight? New makeup?" And so they're noticing that. And you're like, you walk into the room like you command a room, right? And then as we talked earlier, is that original self. You've really, by the time you get to the O, you really know, people call it your authentic self, whatever you want to call it, but you really know who you truly are, what you want to do. And so as we go to get through all those letters, we have to start somewheres, right? We can't just get in the car and start driving. We have to have a roadmap. So one of the things we do to start off the roadmap is I love to learn about like what makes you happy, what brings you joy. So they usually, Leanne, have to work with 10 things, but I'm going to ask you, can you give our listeners 3 things that bring you joy in your life, and why do they bring you joy?
Oh, yes, I love that. So I love to create something that helps people to step into that empowered version of themselves. That's a huge thing for me. I love creating and I love empowering people. We share very similar values, Pill. So that's one of my huge joys in life. I love creating something that'll help people step into, which is why I do what I do and why I own my own business doing what I do. I love spending time with my partner, but in a nourishing, enriching way that serves both of us. I love to have deep conversations that help me to understand how I can love him better, and helps him to understand how he can love me a little bit better, so that we can become that real concrete team. Because it helps me feel grounded, it helps me feel safe, it helps me feel loved, and it also helps me feel that I am of service as well, equally, in equal measure. And the final thing that I love to sing and dance, because I love to express the joy of being human. I just love it. It lights my soul up like nothing else.
Those are 3 amazing things. Like, I just love that. And I love the one about your partner too, because, it's that deep conversations is so important with each other. And sometimes we can become one-sided on that. And we forget about our partner, right? One of the things my husband and I have committed to is so I was talking about communication before. And that is that if something is on our mind that we feel like we need to talk with our partner about, we always come home and say, "Are you open to receiving?" And then we know that each other's, "Hey, can we talk about something?"
Yeah.
And if you're not, then we have the safe space saying, "No, not now." And so the commitment is that within 24 hours, you will create the space to have a conversation, right?
Oh, I love that.
So,
That's amazing.
it's so powerful, because then it allows you to say, "I'm having a bad day. I don't want to take it on you in any conversation," right? And then
Yeah.
since my son passed, one of the things, I have a younger son, Nate, so there's 4 of us. So one of the things the 3 of us said, when Matt passed, was that we would not hold back tears. We would not, say, "Well, so-and-so's in the room, I'm not going to cry," whatever, that we would be very open about it. And so I remember a few weeks after everybody had gone home, my husband would come home from doing his business that he does. And I was like, "So how you doing? How's your day?" And he was like, "Life." And he just said like life. And I stopped there, the coach and me put my coach hat on and stopped there and I looked at him, I go, "Matthew?" And he's like, "Yes." And I was like, "Okay, you're missing him today." So now I know when he says life, I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm missing him too," So,
Wow.
so it's like having an understanding of the words of your partner is so powerful. And I love the song and dance thing. I mean, expressing yourself, doing things. It's kind of funny. We have this event next week in our community here, and it's I don't know if it's called Drag Bunko, but what we're doing is people in the community are dressing up like characters. So there's people, and then they're all dressing up the opposite sex. So like Sunny and Cher, there's the ladies dressing up as Sunny and the guys dressing up as Cher, right? Those
Oh,
things. And it's all to raise money. So So I love doing this, and you don't have to know how to sing or nothing. It's like, whatever, let's do it. So
Yeah.
I just love that. And then, so now we got the joy. And so as we work through everything, the other thing that we do, Leanne, is now we have to say what's on, we create lists for everything. My to-do list, my grocery list, my honey-do list. We have all these lists, but we forget to create our not to-do list. The things on the list that says, I have to stop doing this because I can't go dance. I have to stop doing this because it keeps me from my joy, right? So
Yeah.
if you could think of 3 things that you would put on your not to-do list so that would stop keeping you from doing the things you love to do, what would those be? And why?
I love that. I really love that. So one thing would be is to skipping my lunch breaks when I'm in the middle of a business flow. And because it's not great for my health, and I know that it actually is counterproductive to my own productivity. And plus it would be listening to my partner's advice. So yeah, that would be a big one. Making sure that I am so the not thing bit would be not giving myself a hard time if I have decided that today can't be a full out work day. And if I need to just take rest, then I need to be patient with myself and I need to give myself that rest and be kind to myself. And the other one would be, and this is quite a personal one, but I think it's important to name, is that sometimes when things get really scary, one of my biggest values is my relationship. And sometimes when I go into sabotage mode, I have a tendency to push my partner away, and I'm aware of that. So that's one thing that I would definitely put on my let's not do that today list because it doesn't help. I'm aware of it. And to be kind to myself when that does come up, and there's a wanting to do that.
Those are really good ones. And I'm going to coach you on the last one for a second. When that shows up, that's when you go to your partner and say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling today like I'm sabotaging myself on, or I'm feeling like this today. What words of advice could you give me? Like ask them for help, right? Because they see us, they know. I did this with a client of mine about 2 weeks ago. She's starting a business. And I was like, well, go ask your husband because he's around you all the time and he sees you talk to people. Ask him what he thinks about you. Like if he was to describe you as a coach, what 3 words would he come up with? She's like, he's not going to know those words. I'm like, yes, he will because he's around you all the time and you don't realize it, but you're coaching him all day long. So it's always fun to do those things. So I want to thank you for playing along with that. So I just looked, I'm like, oh my gosh, our time is flying by. So tell Leanne, how can everybody find you? Where can they find you? And do you have anything you want to share with the audience? If you have anything at all to share with them, any kind of freebies or whatever, feel free to do that.
Fabulous. So you can find me over at thegalaylacollective.com. And that's my website. You'll find lots of different things on there, like our workshops and stuff like that. I've got a freebie over there, the freebie that I've kind of linked in, which is a masterclass all on the new paradigm of manifestation that we teach, which is adult phase manifestation, 6D manifestation, helping you to really unlock what it means to be the creator of your reality and, what this new paradigm of manifestation means for you and why the old ways of manifestation might not be working for you as much as they used to. We answer all of those questions. We show you what's possible. And the other place that I live on over is Instagram. So if you want lots of access to juicy free content that really gets you thinking about things at a whole new level, then if you pop over to our Instagram, which is at I am Leanne Rose, you will find lots of juicy info over there. And at the same handle, you can find our YouTube channel. I am about to launch a podcast at some point, which is going to be called the Multidimensional Manifestation Podcast. So when that goes live, you will also be able to find that on various platforms as well. But you'll find out lots more about that on my website.
Awesome. And we're going to put, so for all the listeners that are listening and or watching on YouTube, and if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like our channel, Conversations with Pearl, as well. But we'll put all that stuff will be in the show notes, so they'll be able to get that for you. So everybody, I already let Leanne know that we're going to do our Better Questions, Better Life cards. So we're going to shuffle these. Leanne, you tell me when to stop, and I'm going to ask you the question. So here we go.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
All right. Oh my gosh. Okay, you guys, I did not do this on purpose. She told me when to stop. Talk about manifestation. The card I gave her the example of is the card she just had me stop at. That is too funny. And
That's
she
amazing.
shuffled before. Okay, so it says, how do I deal with adversity?
And you know, it's so funny because this is one of the key things that we teach is that adversity is actually shaping you to be a stronger and more loving person. So the way that I really encourage people to look at adversity is, how is this working for me? What is it showing me about myself? Is it pulling out an inner strength I didn't know I had? Is it pulling out a deeper level of love for myself or for others that I didn't know I had? Is it teaching me a way to help other people step into their light while I am figuring out how to step into mine? The best way to deal with adversity is to take it as a challenge that is going to birth in the new version of you, the stronger, more loving, more empowered version of you. That's my answer to that question.
I love that. I just think that's so great. Thank you so much for sharing. That's so funny how that card came up. I mean, it's happened one other time that we've done that. So that's so awesome. And listen, to our listeners that are listening today, I want you to know, I'm very excited to tell you that our pajama retreat for this year has sold out. And here's the thing, keep paying attention because we're going to announce next year's retreat and where it's going to be at so you don't have to miss out. But our PJ retreat is sold out. However, it doesn't mean you don't get to come and do stuff with us. We have our Shiro League every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. You just go to email me at hello@wsliving.com. That's hello@wsliving.com. And you can type in the word Shiro and we'll get that information to you, or follow us on Facebook, Pearl Sharenza, or go to wsliving.com website. We'll get you all the information. But we want you to join the Shiro League. It's a great community of women supporting one another. And here's the thing, you guys. Remember, I tell you every time we're on here, you come into this world, you are this hard oyster on the outside. You've got this shell you have to work on smoothing out, opening up. But as you open it up, you find your inner pearl that's inside. And I hope each and every one of you go out today and you find your inner pearl of greatness. Leanne, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Yay.